Hi, everybody. Welcome to our chat. This is Allison and Nicole. How you doing, Allison?
Hi, everybody. I'm good. How are you, Nicole?
I'm doing pretty well.
I am so excited to be talking about this new topic that you brought up this week, and you are going to discuss duality. And this is a really interesting topic for today.
Yeah, I thought you and I could just kind of hash it out and see what we come up with, What's been coming up for me a lot lately, especially as I look at social media and listen to people talk, is this concept of duality. And what I've understood duality to be is kind of what we exist on the earth to experience. We come here to experience contrast. Contrast is what helps us to shape ourselves and our minds and who we are. So in the same way that, we need hunger to understand feeling full in our belly, and we need to have exhaustion to know how to sleep. Like there's always like a duality where you need one thing to experience the other. You need the dark to experience the light. What I'm noticing right now is that there's not just two sides to everything. There's like this multiplicity to everything, where there are so many sides to what could be happening, what might be happening. Everybody has an opinion about, what's going on with the COVID-19, what the best approach is politically and scientifically. There's all of these angles that we're going at. And I think that what I'm noticing is a sense of like confusion, to the point where we want to grab on to duality and polarity. Like we want one thing to be the good and one thing to be the bad, and we want to be aligned with that good thing.
Right.
So I'm noticing, I
No
don't know if
gray.
you're noticing that or
Absolutely
not,
no gray,
there's
like
no
our
gray.
t-shirts.
No gray, because you can't be right when you're in gray. And I think there's this big ego part of us that we don't even know is happening, but it really wants to just be on the side of righteousness, of goodness. And then we want our community to come around us and be like, yeah, that's the right thing. Like we got it right. And this is where all the good people are. There's this desire, I think, inside of us to want to be like on that side of the fence. And so in doing that and wanting to pull ourselves together on one side, it puts the other stuff on the other side. And what I think is happening, that I'm noticing, and I've experienced this in my own life recently, is it's creating a divide where it's like, okay, these are the people who are, let's call them open-minded or flexible or like willing to see different sides. And then there's this other group over there who's like stuck in their ways, and they're like the bad ones. Like, why aren't they willing to open their minds? And I don't know if you see that happening around you, or if it's just the people that I'm mostly exposed to and what I'm tuned into, but it seems like we are trying really hard to find two sides and then to take the one that feels right to us. And I think what we need to do, it would be really good for us to do, I'm trying really hard to do, is to just find me in all of it. Like, does it matter who's where, doing what, thinking what do I believe? And do I even have to communicate that out, or is it enough for it just to reside inside of me?
That's really beautiful. Yeah.
If that makes sense,
It's
so
really,
I guess
you want to see color in more of a spectrum with people instead of people just jumping from one side to another.
Yeah. And I think that there's this chance right now for all of these things to come up in a very heated way, so that we can, it's almost like being in a furnace, like, so we can really cook away the parts that don't resonate with us anymore. Like, when something comes up and you hear it on the news and you feel that thing inside of you where you're like, no, that is not okay with me. I know that that does not resonate with my truth and how I want my life to be. But that's like a beautiful thing. We can get fired up about it, but you also can look at it and be like, wait, like what that's doing for me is providing this opportunity in showing me what I do not want. It's showing me also what I do believe in. And then that helps me to stay on my course of, okay, this is where I stand on that. This is what I believe, and this is how I want my new world to be. What can I do inside of me? How can I vote? How can I, mindfully communicate this to other people in a way that might be educational to them and not just polarizing. So I think that maybe if you even have ideas about that too, like how do we even talk to each other? Like, let's say you're on one side of the fence, I'm on the other. Right. It would be ignorant to believe that we would just like avoid the topic, like let's not talk about that. It seems kind of like sticking your head in the sand and not evolving, So like, how do you sit down with somebody who has very different views from you and still be able to respectfully disagree, like agree to disagree and not have harsh feelings about them?
I think I can do the agree to disagree, the harsh feelings afterwards.
That's the thing. Like, so, but
That's the thing.
that's the important part. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe the harsh feelings afterwards are also like little signposts, you know, where it teaches
Yeah.
us maybe not so much about the other person, but maybe those are the parts of the story where we turn it back and see the reflection of ourselves and say like, okay, so where in me do I feel the need to be right, or be more religious than another person, or more evolved than the other person, or more loving than the other person. You know, like those things have to exist for a reason. Everything exists for a reason. So like recently I had somebody on Facebook who posted something about a political leader and alluded to the idea that that person should die. Oh, or be very ill with the COVID-19 disease, because then that person would get a flavor for what they were talking about. And I was like, I can't shut up. Like, I have to say something back. Now when I look at it, I'm like, why did I really need to respond? You know what I mean? Like, I was trying to be a teacher in the moment, you know what I mean? But when I sat back later, I looked at it, I was like, it totally did not resonate with me at all. And not because of who the people are or anything. I just would not wish that on anybody. I don't think that that's good. That's not my way of existing. But again, no, that's my way of existing. Maybe that was that person's way of existing. But I felt the need to respond and say to that person, I'm no longer going to follow you because I don't follow people who wish harm on other people.
Right.
So in the moment, I really thought I was doing the right thing by responding that way. And I was like, this is the right way to be, you know? This is me.
You've got
doing
this.
The right thing. Teacher in me. I swear it's the teacher in me. But then I sat with it a little while later. Yeah, I sat with it a little while later and I was like, you know, if I were so solid in my own truth of who I am, and felt really secure in that, I could have in that moment just been like, wow, I have compassion for that person, that they're so fired up right now, they're actually wishing harm on another person. I don't need to tangle myself up in that. I can just wish them better, wish them their healing, and move on. But I didn't do that. So I definitely learned about myself in that moment. But it did also lead me to the point of this conversation that you and I are having. That was one of the many things I've witnessed lately, where it's like, can you be in a situation that feels really, like really polarizing in that way and still just be steady within yourself and not have to react? Like, can you have faith in just the beingness of yourself and your own, like I picture myself sticking a stake in the ground. Like, this is my signpost. This is where I stand on it. I'm marking my spot. But I don't really need to yelling things to other people, proclaiming things. Like, I can.
You don't need a Gandalf stick. You can definitely have a Gandalf stick.
I could just be
you
like,
shall not pass.
This is where I stand, and see if that's enough. And I think that that's a challenge right now too, because when the earth is at this bubbling up point, I think we want to tip the scales. Like, we feel like we have the responsibility to like tip it in a certain direction and be like, I want to be part of the way that it tips this way and not that way. We have like almost like a fear induced reactivity to it. Like, if I don't speak up, and there are quotes about that too, like, if you are not speaking against a wrongdoing, then you're voting in favor of it. There's, you know, I think, did Martin Luther King Jr. say that?
Possibly.
I think he said that. I think he did.
It sounds like something he would say.
I'm pretty sure I read that a lot of times.
He thought it. He definitely thought it.
Somebody like that said that. There is a famous quote out there. I'll find it for you. I'll text it to you later. Okay. But it's like, if you're not speaking up against an issue, then you're kind of voting for it. And so I think in that moment when that person posted that, and it felt malicious in that way, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to speak up against it, because if I don't, I'm allowing it and I'm letting it be okay in a way. So I felt the need to like talk up against it. So I don't know, do you have an opinion on that? Like, are you like, no, just shut up, don't say anything? Are you like, no, you need to say something? Darn it, that's wrong. Like, I don't know.
I'd have to say certain posts on Facebook definitely will vibrate or like sort of like stir something in me. I'm like, oh, I've got to spend some time on that one. Other ones, I'm like, this is just not even worth my time, especially knowing who posted the post. I'm like, I've seen you post 5 posts before about this. You're just looking for a fight. Like, certain people will post things and you're like, you are just ready to get the next person to stir. And then I'm the one that's going to be fished for it. I think one thing how to stay out of conflict and really feel that you've had your rights. For myself, I don't have to pick every fight because that's just exhausting. But at the same time, I have to recognize that our world has changed. So my parents are in their mid 60s, and they will tell me of a time where you couldn't post your comments and you didn't have this ability, and people were vocal, but it wasn't so public. And so we've really changed the media of comments or having our voice spoken up. I mean, maybe we would go to a march, and that was a big thing in the 60s and 70s. You marched for support, or you'd write a letter, but like that letter wouldn't be viral and go through so many avenues. And then the news network would pick it up, and then comments of the news network. So today we just are almost trained, and our kids are trained to have this this duality that you're right or you're wrong. It's black and it's white, and not learning about the spectrum and everything to comment on. So even a lot of the media that we watch isn't just news, but it's commentary. So I'll watch things and I'm like, wow, like, is that fact or is that your opinion? And then they bring in a panel of speakers who also have opinions. I'm like, okay, I just need to know the facts.
But that's what we were talking about, like the whole need to know. Like, I need to know. I need to have a right and a wrong. It's almost like, are we maybe evolving, like you're saying, the way that your parents experienced news and sharing of like expressing opinions or where we stand on things? Like, are we evolving as a species into this way of being where there is this vast amount of communication? Correct. And so then we also need to evolve into people who are able to receive as well as express. Like we're very expressive. We're putting out a lot.
We're super sexual. Yeah. Expressions are going everywhere.
It's everywhere. But is our receptivity evolving in the same way? Like maybe we need to work on that a little bit. Like, what is the receptive value of hearing all that stuff and being able to just quiet and sit with it a little bit? Because I'm not saying we shouldn't act. That's the thing. Like, if we all just sit there and stand in our place and don't do anything, I mean, somebody out there is going to be acting. Like, you have to take action. And as you know, I mean, you've been working with, all these women in history who are big change makers. Like, you have to act at some point. But is there a way? Maybe this is what I was trying to like chat out. I feel like sometimes you have to chat through things. Like, let's chat it out. Like, let's chat it out, because that helps me understand it. It's my reflecting back from you. Your reflection back on me helps me to understand myself better. But maybe where we need to get to is like an open-minded receptivity where we're taking in as much as we're putting out, like being able to sit with all of that. And almost like, the scientific method where you have to disprove your hypothesis. Like you do like I forget what it's called. When you're doing like you're doing a science lab. It's like I forget. Anyway,
but you're trying to disprove. Science is not my thing.
I know. I love science. I didn't like writing that stuff up, but you have to disprove your theory essentially. And so like maybe we sit back and we receive, and we almost seek out the things that help us to disprove our theory. And when it doesn't work, then what's left is my theory is still valid for me. And now I can express it. And now I can fight for it because I'm educated on all fronts. Like, I've really gotten this multifaceted understanding of the situation from all these different viewpoints, because I think there's so much value in seeing different viewpoints. I'll give you an example. The other day I was walking with my friend, and we were talking about how our kids kind of got shafted out of like a lot of this year, and how a lot of the people that we know, like swimmers who are about to compete in like the state level, didn't get to compete in states. And so now colleges, when they're looking at them, they don't get to write down, hey, I was the first place, freestyle.
State rap.
So like in a lot of ways, what occurred this spring is far reaching in its impact, and so we were just kind of hashing it out, and we were saying things like, how have like these rights been taken away, and how are we allowed to do this but not allowed to do that? And we were hashing out our freedoms. And I sat back and I looked at her for a second, and I was like, wow, we are so privileged, like, to be white women of a certain economic standing, to be able to complain about the stuff we're complaining about, when other people of other, races and cultural backgrounds have been doing this forever. They've been
Ever,
fighting for their
ever.
rights forever. And even women who aren't us in other countries, they don't even have half of our rights. Like we are
They still
very,
can't drive a
very,
car.
or like
Just
show
to
their
let you know.
skin.
Show their skin. Order their own food.
It's not wrong. I say that that person's wrong in the way that they're thinking about it, but what it is right for them. It is true for them, you know? And then we were also talking about, um, oh, I think my connection just went down. We were talking about another thing too that made me spark that up, which was the way that economically certain things are being allowed to reopen and other things are not. And the people who are making the decisions have a salary no matter what. Like it doesn't even affect their families. They are watching other people be affected by it. But what, like the level of their empathy for those people might be that they have no empathy. Like, yeah, it stinks that your business is closed. Sorry. It might be great. It might be a little bit, but unless you are the person impacted by decisions, it's hard to listen to other people's perspectives. Like it's almost like you have to take in everyone's perspectives. How is this affecting the hairstylist who isn't able to open up the salon? How is this affecting the person that owns the internet company? Nothing's happened to them, you know, like how has it affecting the children, the older people? Like everyone's got a different perspective and they are all right in their perspective. So it's like if we are all right, then really nobody's wrong. And yet we're still trying to do that, like I'm in the right camp, like I'm in the correct camp.
Right.
You know, so I think I'm trying really hard personally right now to just take it all in, like to be able to be like equal in the way that I'm listening to everybody, you know, like, okay, yours is valid and yours is valid and yours is valid and yours is valid and mine is valid, you know, but when it comes down to it, then like, since there is no right or wrong, what can I garnish from that? And what I'm trying really hard to take in right now is that we are all in a really messed up time. Like we are all one, we are all the same thing. Like I'm trying to see the similarities, I guess, rather than the differences in a way, because the differences feel like they're just like pushing us apart. But if we could kind of find some of the similarities in it, like you are struggling with this something, you are struggling with something, you are struggling with something. Bottom line is we're all struggling with something. Yes. Can we take that and like move forward in that way, you know?
Yeah,
so the duality is just like interesting to me. Like when we get stuck on one side of it and you kind of put these walls up, you and I were talking about this before, even if somebody's labeled as like a certain political party, or if you look at somebody like gender based or race, you know, racially based, or, you know, if we talk about like sexual preferences, as soon as we know that about somebody, we almost already put like little boxes around them, you know, and say like, oh, this is what
awful.
we're expecting. Yeah, we're expecting this to come out of that person's mouth, or we're expecting this to come out of this person's mouth. But if,
even
like,
careers,
yeah, absolutely.
Careers will put pillars around people.
I mean, in a major way, like a major way, and rightly so though too. That's the thing. Like we almost can't even criticize our boundary, like those little boxes we're putting people in, because there's validity to that too. You know, if you're a doctor, you have one perspective. If you're, you know, a restaurant employee, you have a different one. And if you're a politician, you have a different one. I guess it's just that there's so much, and that's what I've been focusing on right now, is like the fact that we are human beings is like we are just being our human expression of what we're reacting to in our environment, and it's all good, like it's all right. And I'm
I
trying
think
really
it
hard
comes down, I'm gonna like sort of emotional intelligence. And I actually talked about this a little bit today, and having the emotional intelligence, that IQ to be able to say, okay, these are my emotions, that's their emotions, or that's how they're reacting to a situation, this is how I'm going to react to the situation. And having that really centered ground of your feelings is really important. I had a woman a while back say some really nasty things to me, and I had to stay so centered and let whatever she was feeling come forcefully at me, but then know that I was not why she was saying it. It was more like a her issue and not a me issue. So when I watch people, I'm always very conscious of like, where is their emotional state, or like where are they in their day that they are emotionally feeling that way. So I feel sometimes the media or clips that I will see on videos will catch somebody super emotionally charged because they're in that environment, but maybe at a coffee shop they would be different based on how they would react to that situation. So it seems like certain things are able to be managed, but your emotional intelligence, if you haven't spent some time on that, that is like a key piece. And right now, to me, it's figuring out how do you manage your emotions, what strategies do you use to work through your emotions, and how you're using your day to ride with your emotions. It's funny, I'm part of this writers group, and they've really been talking about when do you write the best and how do you function the best. And so I was thinking about, like, how do I manage my emotions the best? I know at 9 o'clock at night, I am a mess. So when these duality conversations come up and I hear the black and the white, or I hear such diversity going on, I'm like, what time is it? How am I emotionally going to handle this post or what I'm seeing? So I can take my best self to that conversation. So that's sort of my personal way of dealing with it.
Yeah, I love that.
I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah, the EQ, the emotional intelligence is so important. And I think turning that back on ourselves, like you're saying, and just knowing who it goes back to like that saying, know thyself. If you know yourself, there's no need for you to have to influence anybody else around you. You don't have to speak anything. You don't have to act. You don't have to react. Like, know thyself and be okay with thyself. And I'm good. And even like you're saying, knowing what time is a good time for you to like look at Facebook or social media of any sort. Like maybe that's not the thing you should start your day off with. Maybe it's not the thing you should end your day with. Maybe you should definitely do it when your blood sugar is at a certain place. Maybe with a glass of wine, depending if that's who you are. But I think, I do. I think even to like end this conversation, just the idea of knowing thyself and being okay within yourself and maybe not having to influence other people unless it's something that, like you said before, I think you touched about it in the very beginning of our conversation, was like being a little choosy about what are you going to, like what really is so important to you that you really have to speak it out and be an advocate for it, like that there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, what is the thing, identify it and be willing to speak that thing out. So I really appreciate you sitting down and talking with me. You helped me to like frame it in my brain. I think sometimes just talking about it kind of like puts it out there and helps stir the mind a little bit.
Yes, I totally agree. I think we're getting video bombed.
I think we are.
And I will emotionally control myself in that.
It's all good. It's all good. He probably has an opinion too.
We all have opinions. It's just how we react to the opinions.
That's true. I'm going to find that quote for you and I'll text it over to you later.
Awesome. Sounds great. It was awesome
Thanks
to
for
chat.
chatting, Allison. Have a great
Nicole.
day. Bye.
Bye.